So, welcome everyone. We're in the throes of the details, working out the details of this summer's project. It's turning out to be a pretty big project. The first thing on the agenda that I want to talk about is data policy. This was sort of catalyzed by a message from NSF. Phil, maybe just to test the system, do you want to see if you can actually, if you talk, people can hear you? To talk about what the issue is?
Can you hear me? Yes? Yeah, all right. So I got an email from Sylvia as she's been going through some of the proposals. Some of the reviewers are asking whether we have a data policy similar to SOAS and CalNex and HIPPO and all the other. I'm sure everybody had their own data management plan as part of their proposal, but Sylvia wants a general campaign data policy. She would like one that states that we will open the data publicly after 1 year. And so I can certainly draft one using, a template of another, of others. But I just want to make sure, and I'll send it to everybody, but I want to make sure everybody is okay with a 1 year policy of turning the data, making it public after 1 year.
Looks like there's agreement.
All right, cool.
So is that,
yep, sounds good.
This is Jason Talent, the data manager at UMBS. Is that the sticking point for her? Is just the having something in writing that says when the data will be published publicly? Or are there other aspects to a data management policy that are an issue?
I think that's the main sticking point. So, we have to put up a data policy that states, that we will be archiving the data on a server, and for now I can kind of use the UMBS data policy as an example, as a template, but then state that the data will become publicly available after 1 year. And it's really just a couple paragraphs that we need to do, but she said that she's not going to be funding any more until we come up and say, hey, we're going to share the data, is basically what she's saying.
And I mean, you have a way to
So
store data.
Yeah, we have the ability to support the project in terms of data archival workflows for managing data and curating data, sharing, collaboration. We can get that all set up. It's just the agreement in terms of when it's publicly released or not.
So we have to send her something written. So we draft something up and send it around to everyone for formal approval before we send it on to Sylvia. And I guess what we'll do is include some information about where the archive is and how it's accessed.
For sure.
And what is the access policy? I mean, I think what we would commonly agree to is that the data, preliminary data, are available to project participants, but not outside of the project until the data are finalized, and that owners of the data have data can't be published without permission granted by the owners of the data, et cetera, et cetera. That would be part of the policy that we would send around. What is the access? The site that you have
Well,
for?
so there's two options in terms of what I'd like to propose. One is a NSF-sponsored project here out of U of M School of Information called SEAD, SEAD.net, and that is designed for academic collaboration around data storage and curation. We have access to their developers, and we have a lot of storage in terms of actual physical space. It provides some really nice tools for collaboration, and it provides some nice tools for storage of data. But and I have good contacts within their organization, but it's questionable as to whether or not they're going to be refunded by NSF, and if they're not refunded, then we want to be able to have the ability to have a working archive and repository. There's also another one called Open Science Framework, and it's basically the same thing, but you connect to a cloud storage somewhere else, and so I could set up cloud storage here at U of M, and we would just connect this collaboration tool, which is web-based. You're able to do all your metadata curation, all your sharing with collaborators, and then once we've said that 1 year time frame is over, then and we do a good job of curating the data sets, we can press publish, makes it publicly available, and it also mints a digital object identifier, so then you have a data publication out of that as well. I feel like that's a more sustainable organization, Open Science Framework, and that's what I would propose that we use. It has the ability for us to keep the data sets behind a private firewall so that people can't download the data, but the metadata, what we're doing, what type of data we're collecting, the research sites, who's involved, collaborators, that would be open to the public. So, say August rolls around and we've all collected data and everyone's gone home. If I were to go onto Google and I Googled Prophet, what are we calling it now? AMOS, Prophet AMOS and Phil Stevens, then this repository link might pop up and it would say all the metadata, all the collaborators, but you wouldn't have access to the actual data files until we until we meet the embargo period and we actually publish that. So I think it's a good option, but I would encourage you all to sort of go to the Open Science Framework, and I can send out a link after this meeting just to sort of look and see, and it feels right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. And if I would actually bring up the page now and kind of run through it with folks, but this BlueJeans meeting stuff has been a little bit flaky, so I don't want to ruin the good connection we already have.
So would this still be consistent with the UMBS data policy, because the UMBS website has a different location of where to access the data? If you look at the UMBS data policy, it says that it's going to be public within 5 years at the longest, and that here is where you can get the data. Would we need to upload it on the UMBS website as well, or would this be a substitute in terms of satisfying UMBS policy?
It would be a better substitute than current policy. It will be probably where we go in the future. And I will probably, the nice thing about using the Open Science Framework workflow is that it will create compliant metadata with our current information management system. And so all I have to do is bring in the XML file, and it will auto-populate all of our metadata for our archive, and then I just have to move the file over, and it's real simple. So it would actually be my preferred way of managing it through this workflow and this essentially this website, and it'll be a lot easier for me to bring it into our system than the previous model.
So it would be a password protected.
Yep. Yep.
Limited access
Yep.
system.
So there would be a main administrator of the project, and so I probably would ask maybe Steve or maybe Phil to set it up, or I could set it up and could make you kind of co-admins, and then the admins would invite collaborators to have access to the files. But again, the metadata, who's involved, and when I say metadata, I mean what type of data you're collecting, not the actual data, would be publicly searchable. Which is really no different than having a pre-campaign website that says who's involved and what you're doing.
Right.
Sounds great to me. So why don't you send me some of the information, and I'll draft up the data policy and then send it out to everybody.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Phil. And we'll try to get that done in the next week so that Sylvia isn't held up in her important work.
Yeah, it was clear that she's like basically said at the end of the email and that I'm not going to fund any more until you send me this. So we want to get it out as soon as possible.
Right. So the next thing on the agenda is sort of logistics of the physical layout. I sent around a message the last couple of days asking people to fill in on the Google Sheet arrival and departure dates. You're not going to be held to these, but if you could estimate arrival and departure dates, that would help thinking about the flow. That slide number 3, if you look at the presentation, shows actually not a very accurate shape, it turns out, of the fenced-in area, but at least all of the structures are fairly accurate. There are 2 trailers that we know are going to be inside of that fence, and there might be a third, depending on funding. And so was that is that a submarine?
Wait, just check in. Can everyone still hear Steve?
Can you still hear me?
Okay, great.
Sorry about that. Most people can. Okay. So one of my concerns is once those trailers are in place, there isn't going to be a whole lot of, we're not going to be able to get close to the lab from the gate. So if you've got a big truck, cargo truck or moving van or something that you want to back up to the door of the lab to unload equipment, once those trailers are in, that's going to be hard to do. So, I'm thinking about Phil's laser table and carrying that by hand down the gravel road instead of bringing it in by a truck. So that's my motivation for trying to get some sense of when people are going to arrive. Those trees. I mean, we could cut down all the trees in the forest. Seems to me that would be a little counterproductive. So there are trees that are in the way. That's why the trailers are situated the way they are in that slide. So if you could all please, as soon as possible, put in your estimated arrival times, and I can try to identify potential conflicts or issues.
Hey, Steve, this is Jimmy down at U of H.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, I see that we've got one spot. Is that the size of both of our trailers, truck and trailer, or?
Yeah, so I was sort of, that's end to end, both trailers.
Okay.
But I just yesterday got quantitative data from Bob Vandekoppel about the actual distance from the gate to the corner, which is, I believe, 41 feet from the corner of the gate to that northeast corner of the building. So I think from what you sent me, I think we can put them end to end. Will that work for you?
I think so. The smaller trailer will be light enough we can also move it around and wedge it in by hand. I just wanted to make sure we were
Yeah.
both our people in there. Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jimmy. So in slide number 4 is the inside of the lab with blocks given the dimensions that are in the Google sheet for the different instruments. For those who haven't been to the lab, the manifold, the sampling manifold, the glass manifold is above the drop ceiling and runs from west to east, from the tower essentially to the pump room. And there are about 8 ports to pull off of that manifold along the way. So those who have asked to have access to the manifold, I put close on either side of that. Probably the NCAR and Harvard instruments are going to have to go a little bit to the south to keep a traffic lane there. Although it wasn't clear to me whether the footprints of the instruments, say from Minnesota and Toronto, are include, if that's the actual footprint of the instrument, or if that includes room for a person to be sitting in front of a computer. Can you comment?
I think we've been generous, but I can give you the exact dimensions in a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So, are there any questions or concerns about the layout as it stands right now? Andy, you're muted if you're trying to talk. Nate's trying to talk.
There we go. I have a question about where we sit. There's a bench there. Is that going to be moved? Because we are in a rack that rests on the floor.
Done.
Okay. Done. Thank you.
Yeah, so all of the benches that are in there are movable. There are no permanent fixtures of benches, so everything can be rearranged. We'd have to find a place, probably on main campus, to store those benches, but that's not a problem. Okay. Well, take a look at this and let me know of any questions.
That wasn't that.
Or requests, I guess. So slide number 5 is the top platform. I don't know if anyone from the Wenberg group is online.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's people from the CalTech group on the line.
Great. So are there any changes to the dimensions of your instrument? Like cutting the weight in half or something like that?
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to send it up in 2 separate loads, and we'll be able to work with that 500-pound restriction for the pulley.
Okay.
I think we have other concerns, though, about how the auxiliary equipment is going to be situated.
Oh, inside the lab?
No, on the tower, actually. But yeah, we'll wait until we move on to that, I guess.
Okay. So
I think the question was whether there would be large weight reductions in our instrument, and it doesn't seem that way. If that's what the gist of the question was.
Well, that was the hope. Yeah. So what I think we'll we'll have to figure out the exact situation for access to the points where you need to access once we get, we are up at the site and see what exactly you need to get. I mean, we are fairly restricted on the platform size, but there is a shelf on the platform section immediately below the top where there could be some auxiliary equipment placed. If that's an option.
How far down is that?
The sections are about 6 feet high, so it's about 6 feet below. Immediately below the western, you can see the section I'm pointing to on my screen here. Immediately below that western extension.
Yeah, I think we saw that from the picture you sent.
Okay. Great.
Folks getting kicked out of the thing, or are they just leaving on their own?
I don't know.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who needs space at the top platform that I haven't put in there?
So we have a small inlet box that needs to be mounted close to the Sonic.
How small? Yeah.
Size of a bread box.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was in the Google Doc, but I can follow up with you.
All right. Yeah. Great.
Hey, Steve, we might want to try and put our cavity ring down, nitrate radical cavity ring down up there for a little bit, but not for the whole time. So, and if it's not possible, it's not possible.
Yeah, so I think the biggest restriction is going to be the weight of the SIMs, and then what else can be added to the tower is sort of is something that we're going to have to look at. So if you have size and weight dimensions for that, could you put
I'll just
that
email
in?
those to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or actually do that and put it in the Google Sheet, please.
I'm also wondering. I'm wondering about the size of what's going to be on the top of the tower, because a lot of us are trying to make flux measurements, and if we have huge, bulky instruments, it's going to create a problem. I mean, Phil had asked about how many Sonics we would have and where we would put them. I think we can't use as much of the tower if there's huge instruments sitting on top of it as well, right? We're going to have to cut out a lot of wind directions. So
we did start a conversation on email about placement of Sonics, but I don't think that's been resolved yet. I'd like to encourage those people who are planning to do flux measurements to resolve that. So there's a triangular tower that's attached to the main scaffold tower, and Washington State has frequently mounted a Sonic essentially 2 or 2.5 meters above the top platform. That's something that we could do again if that addresses some of the concerns of the bulk at the top of the tower. But at one of our last calls, there was some concern, I think primarily from Frank, that sharing sonic data for flux measurements was not a good way to go. So I think we need to resolve that. I think there are three groups that are planning to do flux measurements. From my standpoint of logistics, it would be nice to put one Sonic on the tower and not 3. But we need to resolve that pretty soon so that we can figure that out. So I guess what I'll do, I'll send around, I'll respond to the latest email about sonic placement and urge you all to resolve that. That sound like a reasonable plan?
Yeah, I guess what I wanted to point out is that conceivably, I think there's 4 groups doing that. We could each use one corner of the tower in principle if there was nothing on the tower. Or, you know, we'd rather be facing the wind, but it wouldn't be a big deal. But if there's a huge chunk on the tower, then we're all going to be wanting to face the same way. So the decision about the sonics is informed by how much stuff is going on the top of the tower.
Okay. So that's something that we'll try to work out over email, or we'll arrange a conference call if we need to talk about things. Maybe that's the best thing to do. Anyhow, want to remind you all on slide 6 that we have a room in the Lakeside Lab for. Is that being broadcast?
Do you guys see the map, the PowerPoint on, or do you see us? Or both?
We see you.
Oh, I don't know what that's doing then.
Yeah, okay. So we have room in the lab building on the main campus for prep work or desk work or meetings. So far, only Joe has requested space there. There is a sink in that room, and there's some built-in counters and some storage. So if you need or want desk space or prep space in that room, let me know, and I'll make sure that we have enough space. Otherwise, it'll be first come, first serve. There are several desks. Again, a lot of the stuff is movable, so we can configure the space to meet our needs. But let me know. So we're going to, at some point, put together some kind of information clearinghouse for the policies that we have decided on, contact information, addresses for shipping, so on and so forth. So that'll be coming hopefully relatively soon. One of the things that we need, I think we need to coordinate a little bit is gas and cryogen delivery and use. I don't think, is there? If, yeah, so make sure that the information in the Google Sheet is accurate for the number of tanks. There's a fairly high, a large capacity for storing tanks outside of the lab. Although it's very sandy, so large liquid nitrogen dewars can be hard to maneuver. So just make sure that your information in the Google Sheet is accurate, because we have laid some concrete pavers down to accommodate the need for more liquid nitrogen dewars. So if we need to do that, I want to get on that before things get going.
Did you see the email that Shep is on but can't be heard?
Actually, it's better that way.
By design.
Yeah, that was by design. No, we didn't get that email.
It says we can't hear him, but he was there.
Press your space bar.
Yeah. There's Shep. There's a little button with a microphone and a line through it. How does he know that we can't hear him? So
I don't know if he's still here.
I have included in this Google presentation the slides that everyone sent to me about their methods and their goals and objectives. And there a number of people put in comments and questions about potential collaboration or synergy, or questions about whether certain types of measurements are. Oh, there he is. So I guess I'd open the floor now for people. You can, so you have the link to this document. You also all have editing privileges. So if you need to make corrections or additions to your slides, feel free to do that. But so you can peruse these slides at your leisure. But I was going to open the floor here for people to talk about their concerns or questions or suggestions with regard to, well, I guess actually there's one other thing that we should, I thought I had put it on the, I thought I put it on the agenda. Are there, one of the things we need to talk about is sampling frequency and coordinating for those types of samples that are more integrated, such as high volume particle sampling, coordinating those measurements with measurement schedules and calibration schedules. So I know that Nate, you were planning to do some high volume sampling. Is that right?
We can't hear you.
Yeah, you need to talk into the microphone.
They say hold the space bar.
Hold the space bar.
Well, Nate's gonna do high vol sampling. I also have an interest in doing high vol sampling for molecular composition, and Nate and I plan to talk. And if there is anybody else on the call that is also interested in that, that would be useful to know.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nate and I briefly talked about cloud water and aerosol sampling by aircraft. This is something we're always excited to do.
Where would we get one of those?
Well, I don't know. We'll dig one up. Anyway, we can do that easily with the funding that we have. So it'll be great. Right, Nate?
So, is Drew? Now I hear myself.
Yep, I'm here.
You also you're going to be taking just, are they grab samples or periodic samples?
Yeah, our sampling frequency is pretty simple. We can do anything from a 10 to 15-minute sample, or if it works better to overlap with other measurements, we can do a half an hour or longer.
Okay. Okay, so, and Carrie, do you have?
One thing that, sorry, this is Drew again. One thing that we're talking about is when to do our intense sampling. So if there's a period where people for offline measurements are planning on sort of doing a higher frequency set of measurements, then that would be really good to know.
Right, so when you say intense sampling, Drew, are you Are you talking about within a day or certain days during the July sampling period?
I was referring to maybe 2 of the weeks or 3 of the weeks during the July sampling period.
Okay. So you say you're flexible. You can do 15-minute samples or half-hour samples. Is that what I heard?
We're pretty flexible, and so we're interested in hearing what other people's measurements are, whether offline or online.
I think most of the sampling is going to be online, except for the high vol samples. Is that am I
We're going to be doing some microscopy substrate sampling as well, or impactors. Sorry, we're going to be doing some impactors, Steve, as well. That'll be offline and on some sort of sampling schedule.
Okay.
Probably we'll want to sync up with whoever's doing the high vols. Nate's doing high vols.
Nate and I.
And so, Nate, do you have an eye? We still can't hear you, Nate. So whatever you say, we'll just make it up.
Nate and I can coordinate after this call and talk about it.
So the question is, how long of a sampling period do you need for the high vol samples in order to get the data? And then we need to whatever the lowest frequency sampling is, we need to work around that to coordinate the other samples.
I think there also is an opportunity that if we are planning to deploy at least 2 samplers to potentially do some sort of have one sampler running at night and one sampler running during the day and integrate over multiple time periods or something. But because we'd have 2 and not have to be just swapping out the filters all the time, we could consider options like that to look at daytime versus nighttime chemistry, so that even though if we have to integrate over a long time period, we still would capture some higher frequency chemistry.
Okay, so there's the question of where to put the high vol sampler. Right, if we put the high vol sampler at the top of the tower, how often would either the Indiana or the Caltech group have to be climbing the tower and emitting particles right outside of the sampler?
Yeah, Steve, I wonder about maybe some other place like the UVB site where it wouldn't be contaminated. I mean, since you're talking about very long timescale samples that reflect, really regional samples, that maybe the UVB site on a platform or something.
Yeah, I had actually.
That's certainly possible. The question that I just don't know, but I can find out, is how much accessible power is there. So Carrie talked about putting their entire trailer out there. I'm not sure that there's enough power for that, but I think for a high vol sampler, there should be enough power available.
Well, there have been high vols there before.
Sure. And the question is, scientifically, it's going to be about 3 miles away from the main tower. Whether that is going to make a difference. We could also put it out by the sampling cage, or the tank cage by the road. There's power there as well. So we could. I don't know what the constraints of the measurement are. If taking samples from the forest floor, from below canopy, is going to complicate the picture too much.
I think it's more complicated than the UVB site in terms of looking at regionally representative aerosol.
Yeah, so the painting scaffold tower that we built is still up. That's inside the profit fence. So we could think about putting the high vol sampler up there because there's nothing else. Nothing else that's
the Amanda Lockwood Tower.
Yeah, Memorial Tower.
That would be really good.
So that's another option. So I think that really needs to be driven by the science and the ability to interpret the data. But I still would like to know how often the Indiana and/or Caltech group needs to go up and down the main tower. If there's anyone on the line who can address that, pipe in.
Very often.
Yeah, this is Caltech, and we have a new instrument, and so it's hard to commit at this point to minimal maintenance. We also have a couple. It's hard to commit to being minimal access because it's a brand new instrument.
Right.
And the other thing is we have 2 vacuum pumps up there, and I think those would also be of concern.
Right. Is there any way that
they're oilless vacuum pumps with DC motors, so in terms of their particle generation, they should be the best that you could hope for in some ways, but you do get Teflon dust coming off of them.
Okay. And there's no way that those pumps could be located inside the lab and the lines run up the tower?
No.
Okay.
This is Ezra. I'll need to have some access every now and then to my inlet too. It's not brand new, but.
And so, Ezra, you see where I have you situated on the top platform? Is that going to be suitable for you? So it's on the east side of the tower?
Yeah, location is totally fine, but last summer was the first time I was up there all the time. I think a lot of bumps have been smoothed out, but I'll have to be up there, again every now and then for diagnostics and calibrations.
Okay, so it sounds like high vol sampling at the top of that main tower is not a good idea, if we can avoid it. So we'll talk about maybe putting it on the Amanda Lockwood Tower, or the UVB sampling site that's closer to the main campus.
This Amanda Lockwood Tower, is that the sort of southeast of the Profit Building?
Yeah, well, mostly south.
The one that has a Sonic on it 2 years ago.
No.
It didn't have a Sonic on it?
That's the one to the west that doesn't go up very high. You're talking about something that goes up a little ways, right?
Yeah, it goes up. It goes up about 60 feet.
Sort of near top of the canopy, right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
I was thinking
Yeah, it's farther from the top of the canopy than it was when we built it. Like the trees grew or something.
Or we shrunk.
Or no, that would never happen. Okay, so other questions, concerns, comments, suggestions about potential synergy of measurements?
This is Drew again. I will add to that group of people who's going to have to be going on the tower now and then for us to change out our sampling substrates.
Okay, Drew, so I don't have you on the tower.
I will just have an inlet pretty much. We'll take up very little space, and if Ezra's okay with it, we can even be right next to him or within his footprint.
Okay, so like a Teflon line or copper line?
It'll be a Teflon line, but we're actually going to be collecting our samples at the top of the tower. So we won't be, the Teflon line will just be running to a pump.
Okay. And do you have to go up for each sample, or is there like a manifold that can automatically switch between samples?
The most straightforward way is for us to have sort of continued access, but there are ways around that. But it sort of comes down to this question of sample frequency.
Right.
Could you use the other tower where the high balls would be? Is that a walk-up tower?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just painting scaffold.
That would be a problem for changing the high balls.
Well, yeah, so, yeah, Amanda got pretty good at climbing. It's a lot harder to climb, but it...
Well, Nate will be there. Nate can...
Nate's good at climbing. So, I mean, for one thing to consider, Ezra and Drew and others, there's a safety cable with fall arresters that need to be used by people to arrest their fall in case they fall, but no one's going to fall, so it's sort of a moot point. But anyhow, there are only 5 of those on the cable, so we are the absolute maximum number of people we can have up there is 5 on the tower at any one time. But again, we're already we're significantly pushing the weight limit of the tower. So I wouldn't want to have 5 people at the top of the tower for large portions of the day. So that just
sorry, this is Drew. Is there a level just below the tower where like a very small inlet box could be set up?
Yeah. So
I guess there are other platforms.
Yeah, there are two other side platform shelves. One is immediately below the top platform, and the other is at about canopy height, at about 20 meters above ground. So there are those 2 options. Would either of those work?
I would have no problem with setting up just below the top of the tower. You know, a little bit further down at canopy level, we'd have to sort of think it through a little bit more. But I don't need to be at the very top of the tower by any means. So.
All right, great.
Steve, this is Andy Weinheimer. I'd like to get clarification on the measurement period. I'd originally thought it was going to start 5 July and then go to near the end of July. But based on slide 2, it appears the intent is to measure for the full month. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, that was the idea, to do the month of July. Right. So I wrote an email to you recently. Whether I hit send or not, I can't remember. But most people are going to be arriving a couple days before July 1st. And again, from the standpoint of moving your instrument into the lab, you know, it's not going to be impossible, depending on how many of the possible trailers show up. It'll be a little bit more challenging to get stuff in the lab after they're situated. But the idea is that we would be getting 4 weeks of measurements in the calendar month of July.
Okay, well, then we'll pick our arrival date according to when the trailers are going to be put into place. We'll want to get it there ahead of that.
Okay. So I'll let you know what, well, there, hopefully people will put their information on the Google Doc. So yeah, to clarify, we would like ideally for everyone to shoot for being up and running by July 1st.
Okay, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. It's Sofia Sclaveniti from Mindue, and I'm looking at slide 4. So we are going to do some p-ozone measurements and do some intercomparison and collaboration with Birmingham p-ozone system. So we will be in the lab, but we would like to be as close as possible to the Birmingham system. And I was wondering if there is a way to bring the Birmingham p-ozone instrument in the place where Minnesota BVOC and PTR OFMS is, and so that Mindue with Birmingham will be exactly next to each other, if this is possible.
Okay, so I don't know. Bill was online earlier. I don't know if he's still online.
Yeah, it's kind of late in England right now. I don't know if he's still there.
So I have in the Google Sheet there are 2 instruments listed for Birmingham. Wasn't clear to me whether one of those was whether that was reserving space for your PO3 instrument.
Yes, so for the Birmingham, it's the OPR instrument which measures p-ozone. And in Mindue, we also have a similar instrument that we want to place next to each other and do some collocated and
right. Right. So I have, if you look at slide 4, I have 2 instruments for Birmingham right next to each other. Those are 2 separate instruments. It wasn't clear to me on the sheet whether those 2 units that are described in your description and his, whether those are mutual or shared instrument space.
Open the Google Doc again, maybe, because I don't have it right now. I just saw that Mindue is most in the left corner, and I was wondering if the p-ozone system of Mindue is going to be there as well.
Bill's on the line.
Yeah, hi Steve, it's Bill here from Birmingham.
Hi Bill.
Hi. Sorry, I just got chucked out for about 10 minutes. I just came back 30 seconds ago. We only have 1 instrument, so it's just 1 block of space needed.
Okay, so the other space that's blocked out in slide number 4, toward the northeast corner of the building, I have two instruments there. One, I should list one of those as the Mindue instrument.
Yes,
Will that work?
Yes.
Yep, that would be perfect.
Okay.
So one issue that I can pretend to be Nate for a moment is that the I don't know that I can get his attention now. Nate just brought up that the Purdue Sims is missing in the picture, in the layout, which is a concern. I mean, Nate is always welcome to join us in our trailer, but our trailer currently isn't sitting anywhere near the tower, which is. Are you wanting to sample from the top of the tower, Nate? Can you nod or up here, down here?
So are you gonna?
If you want to be near the ground, he could be in our trailer.
Thumbs up. Give you a thumbs up.
Oh, okay. Because the trailer's designed to put our Sims in it, but we're not taking our Sims up. So that's a possibility if it's a backup, I guess I'm saying, if Steve isn't able to move. It's an option that Nate and I can discuss further later.
So let me just make a comment that a lot of our focus is going to be on terpene nitrates. And I'm really concerned about, we have to think about line loss issues, and that connects to where we ideally want to be. So I think we're not clear on that yet, and but it sure would be good if we had the option of being in the Prophet lab, right, Nate?
So if you you're going to run your own, an independent inlet line, is that right, Nate? We just asked you yes or no questions.
You just gave a thumbs up.
Okay. So we can. There's definitely room for your sims inside the lab, but it sounds like there's also the option of being in the trailer, the U of M trailer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the lab would be the best option for Nate, but that I'm just throwing it out there as like a worst case, or if it's a best case scenario, that's fine too.
Well, so
we can discuss it.
The reason that, to me, the reason we have to use our own independent line is because you can do the line loss tests with that, and we really can't do the line loss tests with the manifold.
Right.
So once we have done those tests, we'll know if how far we can get with that line, and that will tell us where we want to be. I think that makes sense, Nate.
Okay.
Just have to get the sims back from Barrow in one piece, right? To do that.
Hopefully you have a plan for that.
It's Carrie's in charge by some weird process.
Hopefully it will be.
All right, well,
we have a backup, so it's not the end of the world.
So,
I was just going to say, so Paul and Nate, looking at what you guys are measuring and what we're interested in, it might be nice to have the AMS and our nitrate radical CRDS somewhere. I wonder, we probably can't put the CRDS has to be at the height that we're measuring at. I don't know that we could put it at 20, 26, or 30, really. Would you guys be able to measure it all down low?
Well, down low is easy. It's just whether we can actually do quantitative measurements at tower height. That's our issue. Under the canopy is easy. Was that the question?
Well, I think that we had planned on being under the canopy with the nitrate radical and the AMS. We are talking about maybe profiling with the AMS as well. But most of our stuff I think is going to be underneath. So it looks like that there's a lot of overlap, and I'd like to know what's going on in the gas phase, and then possibly look at partitioning into the aerosols.
So if we have all the complementary measurements under the canopy, that makes it a whole lot more appealing, right? If we have nitrate radical and VOCs.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, that's
under the canopy. Then that would really push us to want to be there. But that's the easy part for us if we're in the Prophet lab.
And the other thing I was just wondering, with the group, we've got a lot of NOx measurements and a lot of PTRMS measurements. Probably makes the most sense to spread those out. So I was just wondering if we were going to kind of get together and figure out where everybody's going to go with those different ones, or if we're all going to go to the top of the tower, or I think just based on our inlet and the way everything's set up with our trailer, we'll probably be doing like 6-meter stuff. So it'd be great if other people are doing, have a PTRMS up high would be really nice too. So I guess my question is, could we, in addition to on the spreadsheet, would people in addition include what sample height they're planning on measuring at?
Yeah, Dylan, are you? I haven't heard or seen you. Are you on? No. Take that as a no. All right. So, yeah, that's a good point, Will. If I'll put I'll create a column on the Google sheet. If you could indicate the height at which you want to, intend to, need to sample, that would be good. Okay. Was my shoulder massage a sign that we need to wrap up? Allison. That's good. How are you? You want to say hi to everyone?
I think he was just being nice.
Oh. All right. So we're not.
I don't think we.
It does not seem as though
I don't
there's
think
any
we're getting
convening
kicked out.
going on. So
Okay.
we're fine.
All right. So we're good to go. Does anyone have? Is there anything else? Obviously, this is not going to be the last time that we talk, and I've been taking notes here. I'll send around an email, sort of summarizing the things that we need to act on, and then we'll plan another call to resolve some of the questions that remain. Terry, did you have a?
I'm good.
You're good.
This is Andy. One more issue is we have an exhaust that ought to be from our pump that ought to be pumped away from the lab probably so that other people don't sample it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, if you go back to slide 4, in the northeast corner of the building, there's a separate room for pumps that has separate access, and it has its own air conditioning unit to cool things. And inside that pump room, there's an exhaust port that's actually run underground to the road that runs to the east. So as much as possible, we would like to plumb pump exhaust and calibration gas exhaust into that, so that we vent that down.
It's about a quarter
downwind.
mile, right?
Yeah, it's a couple hundred meters to the east of the lab.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, concerns, comments, suggestions, I guess we'll call the meeting to a close and try to figure out, if we can, how to turn this system off. Otherwise, we'll be watching you do whatever it is that you do.
You don't want to see that, man.
No, we don't. So.
Hi, John. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.